We've got questions. We've got lots of fun. We're going to have a great time. And on that topic of a great time.
Yes.
We don't want to spoil the mood because we're having a great time. And we know we're going to have a great time. So if we, if we had to talk too much about Raw, I could see our moods changing and our personalities changing, almost like the Wolfman when the moon comes out. So let's talk about Raw right here at the top and get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way, blow through it and hit the high points, right? Well, that won't take too long, but maybe some of the funny points, that might take a little longer. A lot of this is going to be random observations because, of course, this was just last night since I was out of town, as I mentioned. Oh, and by the way, on the trip back, the weather forecast was supposed to be low 70s and partly cloudy, mid 50s, and piss-poured rain on us half the way back. Every time I get on the interstate. Anyway, Raw this past Monday night. The Usos have won both tag team championships. Poor Randy Orton's back is injured. There's going to be a 6-man tag team match tonight with Riddle and the Street Profits against Sami Zayn and the Usos. And poor Randy, he's home nursing himself back to health. And here comes Riddle. The scooter and the scuba diving suit and the flip-flops. And honestly, I didn't fast forward because I was waiting to see what flew out of his ass this week. And the answer was nothing. Apparently, he doesn't get farm animals to come out of his ass if he's just doing an in-ring interview. It's got to be a match. I wasn't aware of that. So
no, well, we saw something come out of his ass this week. It was emotion.
Well, is that what you call it?
I think that's what it was. I thought he was going to cry a few times.
I listened to him start speaking, right? And to me, he sounds like either a wimpy Lou Ferrigno or somebody that's undergoing speech therapy after getting hit in the head with a fucking brick. And I can't figure out his appeal. I can't listen to this fucking guy. And bro, maybe that's part of it. He plugged the 6-man, and that was, but poor Randy, bro, he's been having a rough time, bro. With you as a partner, I see why he's having a rough time. I'd be home milking an injury, too, if I had to depend on you. But, yeah, it's just, was that real emotion, or was that a dipshit acting further like a dipshit? Does he talk like that in real life, as they say? Is this real life?
I couldn't tell. You know what? They got me because I couldn't tell if Randy Orton's really hurt somewhere or if he's just completely fine and Riddle's so stoned that he seems like he's about to cry. This was the best I've ever seen Riddle on the mic. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Randy Orton's back is hurt, and apparently he was hurt before the match, and he's really upset about it.
Yeah, he's upset.
Can I say one other thing?
Yeah, please do.
The package before this promo and everything else here, everything with the Usos and RK Bro, it's so palatable in clip form, the way the WWE people put it together in videos.
Yes.
It's so much easier to watch that and actually get what's going on than actually having to watch it.
That's it. If they would shoot the show as raw footage and then do everything as a package, it would look like the greatest shit you'd ever seen. And I think they ought to do a package on this 6-man. Riddle and the Street Profits against Zayn and the Usos. Everybody got a separate entrance. And then the Usos were last. They did a promo from the back, and then they come out to the entrance, and the babyfaces jump them in the aisleway. And here comes the referees, and they're all having a sloppy fight. And have you noticed? It's almost like when guys are fighting now, they just grab each other and just throw fake punches to the other guy's shoulder or rib section or whatever, but they're not really trying to make them look good. They just think if they wave their arms around. And since there's a lot of shit going on, nobody will specifically be looking at them. In a building of 8,000 people, there's nobody going to be looking at them. Everybody's looking at them. Have you noticed that? It's just all sloppy fights. Nobody's trying, or they just think they're filling time somehow with, just move around over here. So they all get a big six-way and everybody runs out and they do the jerky camera work where you can't really tell what's happening, which helps some of this work not be seen. And they go to a break. But when they come back from the break, order has been restored. And everybody's standing in the middle of the ring, not in the middle, they're standing in their corners in the ring. They left on a street riot and they come back to everybody standing in their corner waiting for the referee to ring the bell and everybody's smiling and milking the crowd. Did it seem like we missed the best part of it during the break? How did they get everybody calmed down?
You know, in general with Raw, there's a lot of times, even when you're watching it, you feel like you missed something or you don't understand exactly why they've jumped from one thing to another. Later in the show, Edge and his people were walking down to the ring, and then like 10 minutes later, they're standing in the ring.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I got some times for you later on in the show. I timed a couple of these things just to see. But anyway, so the referee rings the bell, and the first match on this program starts 23 minutes into the show. And none of these people are interesting. The matches and the booking, it all looks the same. They all do the same shit every week, and it's the same people interacting. And it's not even programs like in the old days where you anticipated the guys are working programs, so at the house show, they're going to be wrestling every week, but on TV, they're doing angles or promos about the matches or whatever. You're not watching them wrestle each other for 20 minutes every week on television. And it ain't as interesting as the old days when they did those multi-week promo or programs. So I don't remember what happened. I forgot to write it down. Somebody, I think the babyfaces won, didn't they?
I think Riddle hit an RKO on a heel.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, I will say one thing, whatever we say about it, the crowd was pretty into it. It didn't seem like they were piping too much, at least to my ears, and I was in and out because the commentary's awful, but it didn't seem like they were piping too much, and when the fans were jumping up and down, there was actual noise coming out of their mouths. They did. Well, they did. They did react at the start. They were piping by the end. The piper came in later on in the show. I think it's because after a while, people are like, wait a minute, we're not going to see any. There were matches on this program, but if you blinked, you could either miss them or you didn't really care about them to begin with. And the second match didn't start till an hour and 15 minutes into the program. But anyway, Lashley, the in-ring promo where he was the smiling, philosophical Bobby Lashley, and talking about another match, a rematch with Almost. And I thought the same thing. And when I talked to you earlier, you thought the same thing. It's at Hell in a Cell, but we thought originally it was going to be a Hell in a Cell. And I'm like, what the fuck? They go from the worst cage match in history to a Hell in a Cell? I do think he said that a few times. I challenge you at Hell in a Cell. He kept saying, I challenge you in Hell in a Cell. Bobby Lashley is a well-spoken fellow in real life, but he doesn't seem comfortable doing the baby face, I'm going to lay everything out, explain everything, make challenges, stipulations, wordy, verbose. He's not comfortable with it. It doesn't seem natural coming from him. I thought he was doing a great job as a heel with MVP as his manager for nuts and bolts and Bobby to be aggressive verbally. But now they send him out there. He doesn't have an interviewer to ask questions and or give details. So, Mr. Lashley, if what I'm hearing you saying is correct, then you want MVP, that type of thing, where if you do it right, the people get the information they need, but the babyface, especially if he's not vaccinated with a phonograph needle and just talky Tina, he doesn't have to go out there and be so wordy and get lost and trip over it or meander. They leave Bobby twisting in the wind when he's trying to explain long-winded explanations. And that's what happened here. And then he calls them out, Almost an MVP, and MVP does the promo again, desperately trying to make this interesting.
And this was maybe Freudian, or maybe he just didn't realize, but Lashley at one point said, we was talking about the continued animosity with him and Almost. He said, me and Almost ain't over. And nobody reacted, so he's correct. Lashley used to be over, but this is killing him. So then basically Lashley wanted a match where the winner of the match would pick the stipulations for their match at Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, which now, so no, it's not Hell in a Cell. It's at Hell in a Cell. And he wants MVP in a match tonight, and the winner of that will be able to pick the stipulations for what their match is at Hell in a Cell between Bobby Lashley and Almost. This is laborious.
While this feud has done no favors for Bobby Lashley, the worst thing they could have done is exploit his biggest weakness, which is his mic skills. He was really bad out there. And it went on for a while, and they had to know this would not be good. I mean, he's been on the mic. There's a reason he had MVP. Because he's not a talker. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why you have a manager. Should be more managers in wrestling, quite frankly. But he was out there for a long time, and this was painful.
Well, and then, again, MVP fires up when he gets the opportunity to respond, and he accepts the thing. But then Bobby they've worked this out. It's the writers have, I'm sure, wrung every single bit of spontaneity out of this. Bobby responds to MVP accepting, and the music starts, but then MVP and Almost start going to the ring menacingly. Then the music stops, and everybody's moving slowly, and MVP gets up on the apron, and Lashley turns around and just punches him once he takes the bump off. And Almost walks back around to MVP, and everybody yells at each other, and they go to the break. That was worse than ending it with no physicality. Because nothing fucking happened, but it took even longer. This show was so heavy already. And so that was kind of bleh. Did you see Becky Lynch in the puffy Seinfeld shirt?
Yes, but that's only part of the story. The other part was she on stilts? Because all of a sudden she's as tall as Adam Pearce.
Well, I think they got Yokozuna's interview box for her. Because he was on a 6-inch box. Because he was only my height. He was just 3 of my weights. Becky wants Adam Pearce to take her loss off the books, and Adam Pearce says, how about a rematch? Oh, God, not again. And if she beats Oscar tonight in the rematch of the match that they had last week, or at least Oscar hit the mist on her properly, then at the pay-per-view, it's a triple threat match with Bianca and Oscar and Becky at Hell in a Cell. Another multiple-person match.
Yeah, and Becky walked off like we all did, wondering why? Why is this happening to me?
Shaking her head.
The two best things about WWE right now, to me, the two things I enjoy are Becky Lynch and Cody Rhodes. I think they're the best wrestlers on the entire show in terms of their segments. Never bore me. I enjoy them. Cody's great in his role here. Becky's fantastic. I wish her husband was as good as her. But she's one of my favorite wrestlers in the whole world right now. She's great.
I agree with you, except every once in a while, just with the opposition sometimes. But I know what I like, and is it growing on you, Brian? Is it growing on you? Is the information you're receiving starting to seep into your brain? Don't you want to join them? Do you want to be a sheeple? The House of Judgment Day. I love them. You're not giving me a full-throated endorsement.
Oh, because
I still don't like it.
I don't like the gimmick. I don't like the gimmick. I'll agree. They do it better than the House of Black. I'll also agree they completely stole the House of Black's fucking gimmick.
Yes.
And they added a little bit of the Dark Order in there just to annoy another faction.
Well, yeah, because, there's been a germ of an idea, and I think germ is apropos phrasing there. There's been a germ of an idea in the Dork Order and in the House of Black. An evil assemblage, a cult, a group of people working for a common goal that are led by someone, a silver-toned devil a la Jim Jones-ish type of thing. That's always been there. They just picked a bunch of rejects, bumblefucks, and mud show outlaws to do the Dork Order. And the House of Black, they want to be the next, Rob Zombie horror movie remake instead of anything approaching legitimacy. And it just comes off as a bunch of people fucking around with a fucking camcorder. This is, they look good, they sound good, they are shot well, and they have a reason. Damian Priest, now they're using him like a top guy. He's got the voice, he's got the look, and he's got the explanation. Edge saw the greatness in him and in Rhea Ripley. When you people didn't and nobody else did, and no longer will they be like the fans and the people in the locker room, sheep, being told what to do. We can help all of you, but you've got to help yourselves. And Rhea Ripley's following along in the same principle, and then Edge lays it all out. The truth will set you free. Judgment Day is power and opportunity. Recreate yourself. No supernatural bullshit. No B-level horror movie stunts. Edge told the sheeple, the fans, what was wrong with them, and that anybody who joins him can shatter glass ceilings like he did. There is a goal of a carrot at the end of a stick for people to join this group. There is some way, some clear method of advancement. Edge, a near Hall of Famer. They haven't inducted him yet.
Some clear level of advancement? That's why you like this group? Yeah. Because you can move up the corporate ladder?
No, what I'm saying is, with all these other groups, they especially the Dork Order, that was just ridiculous. And it was supposed to be all this spookiness that they were being led to join this movement, but there was never any reason. And also because they were all job guys and they were flunkies and used that way and looked that way, who would want to be in that fucking group? And then they finally got Brody Lee, but then he's the leader of a bunch of fucking flunkies. With this, Edge is a near Hall of Famer, former multi-time champion, top guy for 20 years. He's got credibility, he looks good, and he delivers it. He is dangling opportunity at anybody that wants to come along with him. They can sit under his learning tree. And obviously, since he's been one of the biggest names in the business the past 20 years, you might want to do that. And look at the look of the other people that he's surrounding himself with. They all fucking look like stars and like they have some charisma.
I agree with that.
And then there is also the tease, who's going to be next? And they wouldn't be doing this like that if there wasn't maybe somebody going to be. And now the people can think, well, who will it be? Who's going to turn? Is it AJ? He's been a heel. Nobody cares if it's Liv Morgan or not, but they got to mention her because it's a program. And speaking of which, then, oh, fuck, here, Liv Morgan music interrupts their promo and they're going to the end of the match. But what were you going to say about the interview?
In terms of time, how long did this promo go?
It went a while.
I think that's the problem. And I think that's part of the reason why I don't like it. And part of the reason why it goes overboard for me. Edge looks good in the role. Rhea and Damian Priest, seeing them together like that, they work perfect. It's kind of like the male and female version of whatever this is that Edge is putting together. It looks great. But coming out there with the light show. I mean, you're coming out there with a light show and a presentation and you get in the ring and you do a speech. If he was out there for 3 minutes and somehow got some of this across and someone was holding a mic, because I'm old school like that.
Well,
I like it better.
I've given up on that. I should just say ditto, like the kids used to say. At the top of the program, every interview needs an interviewer. I agree with you there. But
even if you look
you know what I wrote? How about this, instead of this being 3 minutes, because it's a 3-hour program, how about if this was just like it was, and if this good promo was the only one on the show, it would have got over even better. because you wouldn't have seen 5 other segments with people out there droning on like goddamn thespians.
I think it went on too long. Now, I think a lot of these things went on too long. Bobby Lashley went on way too long.
Ooh.
But I thought this went on too long. Who will be next? Who do you think will be next? Who's going to join the Judgment Day? Will it be Pat McAfee? Will it be Vince McMahon? Who will it be?
Vince would want to work, though. We don't want that. But that was the thing, is that they transitioned right into the mixed tag match. The second match starts an hour and 15 minutes into the show, and it's Liv Morgan and AJ Styles against Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley. And at least they explained the rules at the top of the match. The tag triggers the other side switch. It's guys against guys and girls against girls. They're not being completely idiots at this point. But I don't know. With AJ and Damian Priest, whatever they were doing, I'd have rather seen hip tosses and body slams. It was a lot of duck and block and kick and duck and block and kick and duck and block and kick. As Reggie Morton used to say, give me some tic tackles and flip flops. But when Rhea and Liv got in there, again, Ripley is everything I like about women's wrestling, and Liv Morgan is the opposite. She's too small. Her shit, it's awkward. She's trying to do shit to bigger people, and they're trying to let her. It doesn't come across. She's too pretty. I just don't see it. She's foo-foo. But Ripley tossed her around as she should have most of the time, although she did take some bumps for her. But did you see Ripley catches her coming off the turnbuckles in a crossbody, gets up under her, picks her up into a vertical suplex. Liv balances down where she doesn't let her all the way down, picks her back up again. The strength of that was amazing. And then she had her drop behind and do something else. If she'd have suplexed her then, that's a great heat spot. Because who else is doing that on the female side? So I thought when Ripley was in control, it was fine. Wasn't a fan the other way around. And they went through a break, and then finally there was heat on AJ, very short, very brief, a soupçon, if you will. And then he tags Morgan, and she makes what I termed a horrible, sloppy comeback. And Ripley took 2 great bumps for whatever it was she was doing. And then Edge actually got some heat out of the people by putting Ripley's leg on the ropes when Morgan covered her. But then AJ flies into Edge and then clotheslines Priest over the top and went for something on, Liv rather, went for something on Ripley, but Edge held her into the ropes held Ripley in the ropes so that Liv fell. Did you see that thing? And it was a bump from like 1 foot. You see these fucking girls be flung off the top rope and pop right back up, and it just boom, there it was, 1, 2, 3. So it was Edge's intervention. They were trying to get the heel to cheat. It seemed a little abrupt and a little, What do you think?
I mean, I didn't pay too much attention to the match. It's interesting that they've made mixed matches kind of just a normal thing. It was just, there it is.
You and I have started paying attention to different things, because I want to see Ripley and Edge, and you want to see Cody and Miz.
Well, no, first of all, I won't disagree with you there. And that may have been when I tapped out of the show after that. But I like Ripley. And I like Priest. I'm not sold on this whole gimmick, really, the promo, but I'm interested to see where they go. I'm happy that there's some kind of commitment being shown to them, because those are the kind of people that should be elevated in that company. And Rhea Ripley's still so young, so she could have a great run. She'll
be the number 1 female star attraction in the business in 2-3 years. There's almost no way around it.
I think you're a little hard on Liv Morgan, and I'm not saying she's Mildred Burke, but she's a baby face the fans
I'm not even saying she's Mildred Natwick. Google her, kids.
But the fans like her. She's a baby face. They've been doing this thing with her and Ripley, so they got to finish what they started. I got to give them credit for that. But out of all the women in wrestling, or the women in just the WWE that are problematic or anything, I wouldn't say she's one of them. She tries hard.
Well, that counts for something. Anyway, they did a sports entertainment angle at the end where AJ started making a comeback, but they beat him up and Edge speared him. And there was no bell, there was no referees, there was no help, there was no urgency. The heels just do a couple moves to the baby faces and they sweeten the booze. This was where I know the booze instantly came up, but they came up before the people were actually booing on screen. So that's an hour and a half into the show, the second match is over with. And I wasn't going to I wouldn't have watched the next thing if anybody else was the host, but Jerry Lawler is in the ring to host a King's Court. I'm like, okay, this is pleasant after we've had the KO show and Miz TV and whatever the fuck. At least we get somebody interesting. And then it's with Beer Mayhem. And the first thing as soon as he was on the way down the aisle, I wrote, can Lawler make this entertaining? I have no words. They have figured out something, a verbal segment that Jerry Lawler couldn't say. He asked, what are you laughing at? Is this, I mean,
because I took the show off mute because I was like, oh, Jerry Lawler's on Raw. What are they going to do with him? And I'm like, okay, Veer Mahan, we've seen this guy do, nothing for a long time now. What's going to happen here? And then when Lawler just started cracking jokes right to his face, that's when I really didn't have any idea what the point of this was, but I'll let you continue.
Well, that's the thing. The deal they do is Lawler starts asking him a couple of questions, and old Beer just stares at him and won't speak, and Lawler's uncomfortable. Oh, okay, that was a bad question. I'll ask you another one. And finally, Lawler starts telling him jokes about what the Mysterios have been saying about him. And how hairy he is or whatever. And that was the only mildly entertaining part of this. And finally, Beer starts speaking with his growly voice, and he starts okay, and within a short amount of time, he starts to get lost, and he tries to pick it back up, and then he's supposed to snatch Lawler or snatch the microphone or snatch Lawler's arm that's holding the microphone so he can take it back because Lawler's made an offhand remark. He's going to snatch the thing back. And so when he snatches Lawler's arm, he snatched him so hard the microphone flew out of his fucking hand. Then Beer has to wait 1 minute, like motion, and go over and pick the microphone up and bring it back and give it back to Lawler so then he can hold it there and say, I smell fear on you, Lawler. I think it's this segment he was smelling, to be quite honest with you. And then Beer gave Lawler a veiled threat. I say it was veiled. It was actually positively disguised. I'm not sure whether it was a threat or not, but Lawler seemed to start to take a few steps back, so he took it that way. And all of a sudden, the Mysterios music plays. And here comes Ray and Dominic. And actually, Lawler at one point, instead of the Mysterios, had called them the Dominics, which I think they should meet the Danucci's in tag team action. So the baby faces are coming down the aisle with their music to save Jerry Lawler from getting killed by Beer Mayhem, and Beer jumps out on the floor and meets the Mysterios coming and starts beating them up. Maybe if they'd have just come out there to do a good deed instead of playing their music, his back was turned, he wouldn't have seen them. But they alerted him with the music. So
they should have come in different directions, too.
Well, yes, but he's beating them up, and then he presses Ray over his head and tries to throw him in over the top rope. And he fucking throws him into the top rope, and poor Ray bounces down every rope back to the apron, completely missed him, and he shoves him underneath the rope. This fucking guy. And then now he's thrown both of them in the ring. So as he starts to get in the ring, they keep jumping up and drop kicking him or, moose kicking him or somehow kicking him off the apron, right? And so he gets mad, Beer does, and stomps around for a second and walks off. So he's just going to take that and like it. He feels and has been demonstrated that he can take these people apart with his bare hands, but because they've got the high ground on him in a game of King of the Mountain, he just says fuck it and walks off after he started it to begin with. And nobody cared. Did anybody care? Did you even hear the fake boos care?
I don't think anyone has really cared too much about this whole thing so far, but again, the funniest moment to me, this guy's a killer. He's gone out there, he's murdered the Mysterios. He just destroys jobbers. And Lawler's standing in front of him, smiling at him, cutting jokes on him. Yeah. I couldn't believe it.
Hey, and Rey Mysterio says, "You're so hairy, when you take your dog for a walk, people pet you." We were an hour and 45 minutes into the 3-hour program at the point that match number 3 comes up, and it's Alexa Bliss against Nicky Ass. Are they trying to compete with AEW's Outlaw Japanese Girls here by finding the hokiest outfit and the tiniest woman they can to compete against each other? I fast forwarded and I got to Cody and Miz because they had the Cody countdown at the top of the program, 1 hour and 53 minutes from here. So here's another thing, ladies and gentlemen. With the Cody countdown, how do they know? How do they know that all these matches are going to end and all these unscheduled interactions and street riots and attempted homicides and everything? How are they going to end right at an hour and 53 minutes from now so Cody will be on the way to the ring? Did you ever think about that, Brian?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. But with Cody, you have to ignore sense when looking at his booking. So it makes perfect sense in that respect.
Well, this is what I timed. At an hour and 53 minutes into the program, Cody's music starts and he comes out. Here his entrance starts, right? And he gets about a 2-minute entrance, which is very brief these days for the WWE. And at 1:55 into the show, 2 minutes later, they go to the break. So he gets a 2-minute entrance. They go to a 3-minute break. When they come back, it's a package from last week of Becky Lynch and Oscar and the Mist and the Bianca and the whole 9 yards. And then they go to a backstage promo with Oscar talking about Becky tonight. And once again, this is so offensive. What human being is she being portrayed as? A simpleton, as someone who's developmentally challenged, and she has the cognitive ability, intellectual capability of a 7-year-old? Or is it because English is her second language? Obviously, she went to some fucking horrible place to learn how to speak English, and they ribbed her and taught her that. Why does she act this way, Brian?
I can't explain why, but I would say if you need help trying to understand it, try to look at it like she's the granddaughter of the great Kabuki.
Kabuki didn't do that.
I know, she's the granddaughter. Look at these kids today.
Anyway, as a matter of fact, none of the Asian talents, Professor Tanaka, Mr. Fuji, anybody, Tojo Yamamoto, anybody in the territory days were as stereotypical and as racist and as offensive to that particular ethnic group as the way that all of the companies have these girls acting these days. And somehow, can you imagine if they'd have been doing the equivalent for the African American talent or the Hispanic talent? They didn't have, when they had Crime Time literally admitting they were stealing things from people on the street, or when they had Eddie Guerrero, he lies, he cheats, he steals, he still didn't talk like a simpleton with brain damage. All right.
That is what Vince likes.
What, simpletons with brain damage?
Well, people talking like that.
Hired a few of them for his creative.
No, seriously, he likes that. He likes midgets that act like children, and every foreigner acts like they're mentally challenged. I mean, this is what Vince McMahon likes. There's a long track record of it.
Well, anyway, but where we were headed with this was the timing. Cody's entrance at an hour 53 into the program. He gets 2 minutes. They go to a 3-minute break. They come back and they spend 3 minutes on Oscar's business. It doesn't have anything to do with Cody. And then finally, 2 hours and 1 minute, 8 minutes after Cody started entering, They go back to the ring and he's still standing there. His entrance was 8 minutes ago. Does he have to stand there in front of the people in the building and they're just watching him stand there? So the Miz entrance, and they were really rushing because he only got 2 minutes for the entrance. So basically it was only a 10-minute segment between the time Cody started and the time Miz got in the ring and the bell rang. And it match, what can I say about this match? We've gone over Cody at length. This is his environment. His work is very good, and he's a sports entertainer. And he's about to be, or he is, the top babyface in the world's biggest promotion. I've not liked Miz really ever, but after what we've already seen on this show up till now, and just the fact that somebody's doing something, it's looked like Funk and Briscoe. But did you notice this, Brett? Random observations. I said, Miz starts the heat on Cody so they can go to the break, right? Cody's laying there selling on the floor or whatever. And they immediately go to a spot for Mr. and Mrs. Miz, the reality show where the heel in the match that we're watching is playing patty cake on the phone with his baby and carrying his baby around in his arms. Can you imagine when fucking, I don't know, when Stan Hansen had broken Bruno's neck and the rematch was coming up in Shea Stadium, if they'd had a picture of Stan Hansen changing his baby's diapers with a parakeet on his shoulder.
What a heel move. You're working a match against Cody and you put a commercial for your reality show there? That's a great heel move.
Oh, yeah. That'll get him that's killing heat right there. If I was him, Miz, I'd hire security. He might be stabbed over this. Anyway, they come back, and Cody made his comeback and got the figure 4, and Miz got a rope break and rolled out on the floor, and Cody goes to the top. He's going to do that blind moonsault again. Adam Page, what? If you can do it, would you just look over your shoulder? That would make it look a lot less phony. But he's going to do that, but guess what happens? Seth Rollins runs out because his back is turned, just puts a hand in his ass and shoves him off the top rope. And ding, 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 there's a DQ, just out of nowhere. So now we've got, obviously, it's Seth and Cody at Hell in a Cell, And
that'll be good. That'll be good. Yeah.
That'll be good. But but their finishes just come out of nowhere. They think they're building to them, but there's no chaos like in an Eddie Graham or a Dusty Rhodes finish.
Well, let me ask you this.
Ahead.
First of all, you have to give Vince's approval on anything that's going to be on that show, and he may even just put his little spin on it. But beyond that, who's the great finish guy there? Who's the guy in WWE right now that you know of that can give a good finish?
Well, that may be a problem.
You spent a lot of time in locker rooms with a lot of guys that had a lot of great finishes.
Well, all right. Good point there. You got a point there, kid, but if you comb your hair right, nobody will notice it.
The Miz is growing on me. He did a promo before this match. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
It was good. He said Cody has more pyro than the 4th of July.
Well, and that's just on his robe. But he got pushed off the top, the disqualification, 2-on-1 on the floor. And did you notice there's the female referee? There's 2 heels kicking the shit out of the babyface after the match on the floor. Obviously not legal. The referee is standing there on the floor watching them do it. And just as I noticed that, well, how much more useless can you be or look like or be made to look? They actually grabbed Cody and threw him into the referee that was standing there, and she ran away. It's like it running a cop off a street corner when you're doing a mugging. Oh, shit, I better get out of here. These fucking guys are serious. Me run call for backup, which never came. So then Seth goes at a glacial pace, the overly milked WWE, where nobody's coming to help. Nobody's trying to stop it. It doesn't seem like it's urgent, so why shouldn't they take their time? And he goes over and snatches Cody's weight belt from the little kid that he had given it to in his entrance, and comes over and whips Cody one real good lick with it. At least it wasn't a sledgehammer. They said they used sledgehammers and baseball bats 8 times, 10 times. But the weight belt that you could really light somebody up with 4 or 5 times and leave some nice money. One shot with that. Okay. And then the heels walk off unmolested because the cops had better things to do, and so did all of Cody's friends, apparently. Are they going to tell the story every babyface in the company is jealous of Cody? Nobody wants to come help him? And then Cody gets up, dusts himself off, starts limping. He's got a strap mark on his back. He's selling the knee that went into the stairs. And he gets the weight belt, and on the way by, as he's limping by, he puts it back in front of the little kid. Now, that was a perfect touch. That was Dusty all over the place. And the people are, oh, he gave it back to the kid. So that kind of shit, he's great with details and stuff like that. You're never going to see Cody teleport himself anywhere. So he's great with that shit. But if they would give these guys, the talent, some help by giving them the infrastructure to make a chaotic angle. When was a time that the Horsemen, the Midnight Express, and anybody were on dusty roads in the middle of the ring kicking the shit out of him, and there weren't referees being flung here and there weren't people trying to get in the ring and save, and there wasn't some kind of urgency going on?
A bell being rung?
A bell being rung. But now they're just doing this shit, and there's no jeopardy or urgency, and it's a performance that people are sitting and watching. You can't really get heat like that when it's not like, my God, he was saved, in the twinkling of an eye by a cat's whisker or a cunt hair or whatever. It's like, well, they just finished doing what they were doing and left. But anyway, the next match, we're getting to the meat of the matter here. The next match was Ezekiel against poor old Chad Gable, and he had Otis and Owens in his core. Otis and Owens sounds like a CPA firm. If you have a problem with the IRS, call Otis and Owens. And I wrote here, I don't know how much more I can take. And then in the back, later on, Cody updated his health and cut a promo on Seth for Hell in a Cell, and looks like old Seth's going to go 0-3, and it looks like old Seth's going to go 0-3. And Lashley versus MVP. Woo, Nelly. It wasn't as bad as Lashley and Almost, because it didn't last as long, and Almost was barely in it. However, nothing else happened either. And MVP's been injured, and he hasn't wrestled in some time, and I'm not sure. I mean, he's got the cane. It looks good with his suit, but I believe he had an injury that necessitated that at one point, didn't he?
I believe so, because I remember we saw him before the cane, and then he had the cane, yeah.
Well, you know what? It's always that way. Before you have something, you don't have it, and then after you get it, you have it. It happens that way every time.
Did we see him get hurt? Did it happen during an event? A premium live event?
I don't think so. I don't recall.
All right.
But I don't believe it did. Anyway.
Get well soon.
Get well soon. Yeah, get the taste of this out of your mouth, MVP, as quickly as you can. He got on the bicycle, took a powder to the floor a couple times, and so Lashley follows him, and as MVP rolls in and Lashley's on the floor, Almost comes over, and I swear to God, I can't say running. That would be comedically over-exaggerating. He was walking briskly and stuck his right arm out, and with no motion of the arm whatsoever, just walked by Lashley and hit him with a stationary arm clothesline, and Bobby went down like he'd been hit with a fucking boat oar. And then he gets thrown in the ring, and MVP hit a big boot and trash talked him and punched him a couple of times, and Lashley grabbed him and hit some kind of move, and I'm not sure what it actually was, and then clotheslined MVP over the top rope, and that looked good. So MVP still got a step or two in him. And he picked him up and does the deal where he fireman's carries the eye and runs him into the ring post and then rolled him in. And now here comes Almost. And he gets in a fight with him on the floor. I was fucking Almost was 30 feet away maximum this whole match. But Lashley had time to pick MVP up and just run him into the ring post. Sorry ass bodyguard for his manager. But nevertheless, Almost and Lashley get in a fight, and the bell rings suddenly, and now we see, which I don't believe had been referred to before, and since it almost never happens in wrestling, you weren't looking for it, but Lashley got counted out. So that was about the flattest possible finish that they could have come up with. And then to try to bring the people back a little bit, since the heels just got a soupçon of heat, Lashley grabs MVP in the middle of the ring and puts him in the hurt lock and shakes him a couple times and then lets him go. And that was it. So now MVP gets to pick the stipulations for the match between Lashley and Almost at Hell in a Cell, which is not going to be in the cell, but it'll probably be Hell. And there's another match where very little, if anything, happened, or another segment, very little, if anything, happened at the end, and everybody walked off broke, busted, and disgusted, as JYD used to say.
You know, at this point, I really wish it was Hell in a Cell.
It would be hell, all right. They just did it. What's the difference?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And then finally, again, a rematch from last week, Becky against Asuka. I didn't care for it that much last week. I wasn't that interested this week. They had a match. It looks the same as the other matches that they have. They fought on the floor. Becky conveniently fell right into Bianca Belair's lap, who was sitting in the same spot that she sits in every week when she gets involved in the end of the match inadvertently, in the same fashion. They fight to the floor and somebody falls and then somebody ducks, and that's what happened. Becky ends up in her lap. Asuka innocently goes to kick Becky's head in. Becky moves and Asuka kicks Bianca's head in. And then Becky rolls in the ring and Asuka rolls in the ring to beat the count. Since we just saw a count out, so now it's fresh in our minds. She rolls in the ring to beat the count, but she rolled in under the bottom rope, and then when she got face down on her belly in the ring, she just stopped rolling. And Becky walked over and just did a thing where she hooked her legs or her feet and rolled her over 1, 2, 3. And now it's a 3-way at Hell in a Cell. Jesus.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the WWE's presentation of Monday Night Raw. You could hear the results right there. That's not Vince ripping up his script. It's Jim ripping up his notes, seemingly.
Hold on, I need to get some matches.
No, do not do that in the house. Come on, we talked about that.
I'm going to set it on fire. Hoo, hoo. Fire. Hoo.
Well, perhaps someone heard
the way you walk and talk.
Or perhaps someone heard the way you walk and talk and sing about the Moona and the Tuna and the Spring. No, perhaps.
You know, I do love to sing about the Moona and the Tuna and the Springer.
But perhaps.
I love to sing about the skies of blue and a T for two and a.
Well, Jim, perhaps someone wants to hear your Ohio players take. Perhaps someone would prefer to hear the Pointer Sisters. And if you need to get somewhere, maybe someone needs to point over there and say, hey, check out rockauto.com.
Well, that's good. If you need to get somewhere, you're talking about transportation now, right? Yeah. Aren't you, Brian? You're talking about not walking down the side of the interstate all broke, busted, and disgusted, a no-car driving son of a bitch because your car or your truck or your motorized conveyance broke down. No more will that happen to you if you just remember this very simple collection of words, rockauto.com. That's all you need to remember because, folks, that way you will always have access to every part your car or truck will ever need. They've got everything, as we've mentioned, from the widgets on the thermostat to the engine control modules and brake parts, motor oil. They've even got new carpet. Brian, I know you just carpeted your office there in the new Last Manor.
I did not.
Carpet from rockauto.com.
No, I did not. If I was going to do that, I would certainly call our good friends or not call them. I'd go to their fine website. That's why it's called .com. Yeah.
You go to rockauto.com on the internet like us kids do. You don't use the phone anymore. But, well, you told me you were getting that carpet because it was Scotch guarded for Swami. Because he shits all over the place. But anyway,
he doesn't. Will you stop
it? He every once in a while. rockauto.com is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. You can see all the prices and the brands and the specifications. And the best of all, the prices are always reliably low. Same for professionals as do-it-yourselfers, because why do you want to get the shaft just because you don't have the certificate hanging on your wall that says you're a professional mechanic? Why, you can fuck a car up just as easily as you can pay somebody to fuck one up. So do it yourself. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, and write JCE in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. And they can make suitable arrangements. They might give you some of the aftermarket shit if they don't know that you're in with us, because we give you the 2 thumbs up. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need in its whole sad, miserable existence. rockauto.com.